I am Camille, 28 years old. For 6 years, I poured my heart into my parents' pharmaceutical company, working twice as hard as everyone else to prove my worth. But no matter what I achieved, I remained invisible beside my brilliant brother Jackson. My parents only had eyes for him. Then came the day they called me into the office. I expected a promotion. Instead, I got a box for my belongings. But sometimes when one door slams shut, something incredible waits on the other side. Before I tell you my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever felt undervalued by the people who should appreciate you most. Growing up in Brookline, an affluent suburb just outside Boston, I always knew our family was different. Our sprawling colonial home with its manicured lawn and heated indoor pool was a physical reminder of my father Richard Prescott's success. Dad had built Pharmagen Pharmaceuticals from nothing into a regional powerhouse in just 15 years, and my mother Diana, with her sharp business acumen, managed the financial side of both the company and our family with precision. But the true golden child of the Prescott family was unquestionably my brother Jackson. 3 years my senior, Jackson had the kind of effortless brilliance that made everything look easy. Tall and charismatic with our father's confidence and our mother's analytical mind, he had been a star athlete in high school, student body president, and graduated valedictorian before moving on to Harvard. There, he completed his MBA with honors while captaining the rowing team and establishing connections with the children of pharmaceutical industry giants. My parents never missed a single one of his game ceremonies or presentations. Our home was a shrine to Jackson's achievements. Trophy cases lining the hallway, framed newspaper clippings of his accomplishments and his Harvard diploma prominently displayed in the entrance foyer where visitors couldn't miss it. My own accomplishments seemed to fade into the background by comparison. I worked hard in school, graduated with honors, and earned a business degree from Boston University, a perfectly respectable school, even if it wasn't Harvard. While Jackson played sports, I developed a passion for marketing and communications, spending hours analyzing advertising campaigns and studying consumer psychology. But at our mandatory Sunday family dinners, the conversation always circled back to Jackson's latest triumph. Jackson closed the Meridian account today, brought in $2 million in revenue, Dad would announce proudly. Jackson has been invited to speak at the industry conference in Chicago. Jackson was mentioned in the Wall Street Journal's piece on rising pharmaceutical executives under 35. When I would try to share my own small victories, the response was lukewarm at best. Camille got an A on her marketing thesis. Mom might mention briefly before returning to Jackson's exploits. My achievements were acknowledged, then promptly forgotten, falling like stones into a deep well. Despite this imbalance, I loved my family and harbored no real resentment toward Jackson. He was always kind to me, if somewhat oblivious to our parents' obvious favoritism. After college, when my classmates scattered to various marketing firms across the country, I made what I thought was the logical decision to join the family business. Part of me hoped that by working alongside my parents, I could finally earn the recognition I craved. The other part genuinely loved the pharmaceutical industry and believed in our company's mission to develop affordable medications for chronic conditions. "Are you sure you want to work for your parents?" my college roommate had asked when I told her my plans. "You know they will always see you as their little girl, not a professional." "It will be different in a business setting," I insisted. "They will see what I can do." The first week at Pharmagen, I met Ashley Donovan, the company's HR director, who quickly became my only true ally in the company. 5 years older than me, with a practical outlook and genuine warmth, Ashley saw through the family dynamics immediately. "You're going to have to work twice as hard to get half the credit," she warned me over coffee during my first month. "Not just because you're the boss's daughter and people will assume nepotism, but because your brother has already set a certain standard in their minds." I nodded, already aware of the challenge ahead. "I know, but I can do it. I just need a chance to prove myself. Just remember, your value isn't determined by their approval." Ashley said words that would come back to me years later when I needed them most. During those early years at Pharmagen, I tried everything to gain my parents' professional respect. I arrived earlier than anyone else stayed, later, volunteered for difficult projects, and developed deep knowledge of our products and competitors. I took a small apartment in Cambridge rather than accepting my parents' offer to buy me a condo, determined to make my own way despite the family wealth. At family gatherings, relatives would often ask why I insisted on working so hard when my future was clearly secure as a Prescott. "You could travel the world, Camille," my aunt suggested once, "or go to graduate school if you want to feel productive. Your father would happily pay for it." What they didn't understand was that I wasn't working for financial security. I was working for something far more elusive. Something money couldn't buy, a form of love and respect I had been seeking since childhood, still convinced it was just around the corner if I could just achieve enough. My career at Pharmagen Pharmaceuticals began in the marketing department despite my business degree and my status as a Prescott. Dad insisted I start at an entry-level position as a marketing coordinator, answering to a director who had been with the company for 15 years. "Everyone needs to learn the business from the ground up," he explained when I asked why Jackson had started as a management associate with his own office, while I shared a cubicle with two other new hires. "Jackson's MBA gives him a different starting point." I swallowed my objections and threw myself into the work. Marketing pharmaceutical products is a complex business, heavily regulated, and requiring a delicate balance between scientific accuracy and compelling messaging. I spent my evenings reading industry journals, FDA guidelines, and studying our competitors' campaigns until I could discuss any Pharmagen product in my sleep. By my second year, I had been promoted to marketing specialist, responsible for coordinating campaigns for our diabetes medication line. I worked 60-hour weeks canceling plans with friends missing college reunions and putting dating on indefinite hold. My apartment became little more than a place to sleep between workdays. In my third year, I spearheaded our social health campaign, a breakthrough initiative that used social media to connect patients with chronic conditions while subtly building brand awareness for Pharmagen products. The campaign generated significant positive press and brought in several new hospital contracts. At the quarterly meeting where results were presented, I sat up straight, waiting for my parents to acknowledge my contribution as the campaign's metrics were displayed on the projection screen. Record engagement numbers, increased prescription rates, positive sentiment up 32%. "Excellent work on the social health initiative," my father said, scanning the room. "This kind of innovative thinking is exactly what keeps us competitive." My heart rose for a moment, then plummeted as he continued. "Jackson, your oversight on this project shows your growing leadership. Well done." My brother had attended exactly 2 planning meetings for the campaign, offering a few suggestions that we ultimately didn't implement. Yet somehow, in my father's eyes, the success belonged primarily to him. As Jackson nodded and accepted the compliment with his usual easy charm, I caught Ashley's sympathetic glance from across the conference table. I maintained my professional smile, but something hardened inside me. The pattern was becoming clear, yet I still couldn't bring myself to give up. During my 4th year, I was promoted to Assistant Marketing Director, reporting directly to the VP of Marketing, a position that should have given me more visibility with the executive team. I developed strong relationships with several key clients, including Westfield Biotech, a growing research firm that had become an important Pharmagen partner. My parents rarely attended client meetings, preferring to focus on big-picture strategy and leaving the relationship management to the sales and marketing teams. This gave me freedom to build my own reputation outside their shadow, and I discovered I had a talent for understanding client needs and translating them into actionable marketing strategies. It was during this period that I met Ryan Walsh, a product manager who transferred to our Boston headquarters from the Chicago office. Ryan was refreshingly direct and seemed immune to company politics. "You know, I was surprised to learn you were a Prescott," he told me after we had worked together for a month. "You work harder than anyone here, which is the opposite of what I expected from the owner's daughter." His comment caught me off guard. What did you expect? The typical rich kid with a vanity title who takes long lunches and leaves early on Fridays, he said with a shrug. "Instead, you're usually here when I arrive and still working when I leave. Plus, that Davies campaign was brilliant. You have real talent, Camille." His words were like water in a desert. I had become so accustomed to having my contributions overlooked that sincere recognition felt almost uncomfortable. As my 5th year at Pharmagen began, I was finally promoted to marketing director, a role that came with significant responsibilities and a team of 7 reporting directly to me. Jackson, meanwhile, had been made vice president of strategy after just 4 years with a corner office and direct access to the board. The disparity was obvious to everyone, but few dared mention it. Those who knew me well understood my dedication to the company went beyond family obligation. I truly believed in what we were doing and the medications we developed that improved people's lives. Each marketing campaign I created was designed not just to sell products, but to educate patients and healthcare providers about treatment options. That dedication was about to be tested in ways I never imagined as rumors of a potential merger began circulating through the company hallways. The first sign of serious trouble came on a Tuesday morning in April. I arrived at the office to find the executive conference room occupied and the blinds drawn unusual for the typically transparent management style my father preferred. When I asked my assistant about the meeting, she mentioned that the executive team and legal counsel had been in there since 7 a.m. Later that day, an all-staff email announced that Pharmagen was exploring a potential merger with Apex Pharmaceuticals, a larger competitor based in New Jersey. My father's message was upbeat, emphasizing growth opportunities and expanded resources. But anyone in the industry would recognize that such mergers often meant restructuring and job cuts. At the family dinner the following Sunday, I tried to get more information. "So what is the timeline for the Apex merger?" I asked, as my mother served her signature roast beef. My father set down his wine glass. "Nothing is finalized yet. We are in preliminary discussions." "Will there be layoffs?" I pressed. "The marketing team is concerned." "These details are being worked out," my mother interjected smoothly. "Jackson is heading the transition team and will ensure everything goes smoothly." I looked at my brother in surprise. "I didn't know you were leading the merger negotiations." Jackson at least had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "Dad asked me last week. We are still in the early stages." "Shouldn't someone from operations be involved?" I suggested. "Jackson's strategic vision is valuable, of course, but the operational integration will be complex." My father's expression cooled. "We have the situation well in hand, Camille. Jackson understands the big picture considerations that will determine the success of this venture." The conversation shifted to my cousin's wedding, but a knot had formed in my stomach. As marketing director, I should have been consulted about how our brand would be positioned in a merged company. More concerning was the appointment of Jackson, who had limited experience with operational details to lead such a consequential process. 2 weeks later, Jackson presented the preliminary merger proposal at a board meeting. As a director-level employee, I was invited to observe but not participate. Sitting in the back of the boardroom, I followed along with the printed materials as Jackson outlined the financial and strategic advantages of the merger. When he reached the section on departmental integration, my concern grew. The proposal called for consolidation of marketing functions at Apex's headquarters, effectively dismantling the team I had built. More alarming were the revenue projections, which seemed to double count certain product lines and overestimate market growth for our combined portfolio. I noted the issues carefully, waiting for the question period after the presentation. When the floor opened for discussion, I raised my hand. My father nodded reluctantly. "I noticed some discrepancies in the revenue projections on page 23. I began carefully. "The growth estimates for the diabetes line appear to include both companies' current products, but fail to account for the cannibalization that would occur when our overlapping medications compete for the same prescriptions." A brief silence followed as board members flipped to the referenced page. "Additionally," I continued, "the operational integration timeline doesn't account for the 9-month lead time needed for marketing material approvals through FDA channels. We would need to start that process immediately to avoid disruption." Jackson looked momentarily flustered, shuffling through his notes. My father stepped in smoothly. "These are minor details that can be addressed in the final proposal," he said dismissively. "The broad strokes of the merger strategy are sound." But the CFO, Mr. Levinson, was already recalculating the numbers. Actually, if Ms. Prescott is correct about the revenue overlap, we could be overestimating year one returns by nearly 20%. That would significantly impact the financing structure. My mother shot me a cold look that I recognized from childhood, the one that said I had embarrassed the family. I had not intended to undermine Jackson, only to ensure the board had accurate information. But the damage was done. After the meeting, my father called Jackson and me into his office. "What was that about?" he demanded once the door closed. "I was trying to help," I explained. "Those projections could cost us millions if left uncorrected." "If you had concerns, you should have brought them to Jackson privately," my mother said, appearing in the doorway. "Not ambushed him in front of the board." "I only received the materials this morning," I pointed out. "There wasn't time." "Regardless, this merger is critical to the company's future," my father said. "We need to present a united front." Jackson had remained silent through this exchange, staring at his shoes. Finally, he looked up. "Some of Camille's points were valid," he admitted. "I will incorporate the adjustments into the next draft." Our father nodded, satisfied by this resolution, but the tension between us lingered. As we left his office, I tried to speak with Jackson. "I really wasn't trying to embarrass you," I said quietly. "I just want the merger to succeed." He gave me a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, no hard feelings." But things were different after that day. I was excluded from subsequent merger meetings, my emails requesting updates went unanswered, and I noticed hushed conversations between my parents and Jackson that would stop when I approached. It was during this tense period that I met Eleanor Westfield in person for the first time. As the daughter of Westfield Biotech's CEO and their director of new ventures, Eleanor had reached out to discuss a potential collaboration on marketing for a new medication delivery system. The meeting was scheduled in our company's client presentation room, and to my surprise, my father decided to attend along with Jackson. Typically, they left client relationship management to the respective departments unless major contracts were being negotiated. Eleanor Westfield was not what I expected. In her early 30s, she had a quiet intensity and analytical mind that became apparent as soon as she began presenting Westfield's proposal. She outlined their new technology with precision, answering technical questions with ease while maintaining a warm, approachable demeanor. When she asked about Pharmagen's marketing strategy for innovative delivery systems, my father gestured for Jackson to respond. Jackson provided a generic answer about cutting-edge approaches and synergistic messaging corporate speak that contained little substance. Eleanor nodded politely, then turned directly to me. "Ms. Prescott, I understand the social health campaign was your creation. That kind of patient-centered approach is exactly what we are looking for in a marketing partner. How would you adapt that model for our delivery technology?" Surprised but prepared, I outlined a potential strategy that would focus on the patient experience benefits of their innovation. Eleanor asked several follow-up questions that demonstrated her deep understanding of both the technology and marketing dynamics. Throughout this exchange, I was aware of my father's growing impatience. He clearly expected Eleanor to direct her questions to him or Jackson, not to focus on the marketing angle I represented. After the meeting, Eleanor handed me her business card. "I would love to continue this conversation. Perhaps we could meet for coffee next week." Before I could respond, my father stepped in. "Jackson will be your main contact for this initiative going forward. Camille's team will be quite busy with other projects." Eleanor's expression revealed nothing, but she nodded and handed Jackson a card as well. "Of course. Lovely to meet you all." As she left, I caught her studying the interaction between my father Jackson and myself with thoughtful eyes. Something in her gaze suggested she understood more about the dynamics at play than she let on. That evening, I received an email from Eleanor. Regardless of the project assignment, I'd still enjoy that coffee. Professional networking is always valuable. We scheduled a meeting for the following week, which I didn't mention to my family. Over coffee, Eleanor was candid about her own experiences working in her family's company. "Being the boss's daughter comes with unique challenges," she said. "People either think you haven't earned your position or expect you to have more influence than you actually do." I found myself opening up to her more than I had intended, sharing some of my frustrations with the merger process and my general experience at Pharmagen. She listened without judgment, occasionally offering insights from her own experience. "Family businesses are complicated," she said as our meeting concluded. "But remember that your value isn't determined by your family's perception. I've seen your work, Camille. It speaks for itself." Her words echoed Ashley's advice from years before, and I felt an unexpected connection with this perceptive woman who seemed to see through the professional veneer to the underlying struggles. What I didn't realize then was how important this connection would become, or that Eleanor Westfield was already forming plans that would intersect with my life in ways I couldn't imagine. 2 days later, I overheard a conversation that would prove my growing concerns weren't paranoia. Working late, I was heading to the break room when I heard my parents' voices from my father's office, the door slightly ajar. "We need to consider the organization chart for the merged company," my mother was saying. "Apex expects their marketing VP to retain control of the combined department." "What about Camille?" my father asked. A pause followed. "She's talented," my mother admitted reluctantly. "But she's becoming a liability with these questions about the merger finances. Apex specifically mentioned wanting a clean transition without internal resistance." "She's still our daughter," my father said, his voice lower. "And we will take care of her," my mother assured him. "But business is business, Richard. Sometimes tough decisions are necessary for the greater good." I backed away silently, my heart pounding. What I had feared was happening. The merger wasn't just threatening my department, it was threatening my position. And my parents were discussing my future as dispassionately as they would any other employee. The next week brought a particularly troubling board meeting. When I arrived, I found my usual seat occupied. My name card had been placed at the far end of the table, away from the other department heads. As the meeting progressed, the CEO from Apex Pharmaceuticals was introduced via video conference to discuss the merger progress. Several key strategic decisions were presented as finalized, including the consolidation of research facilities and the retirement of the Pharmagen brand name for most products. When I raised my hand to ask about market testing for the rebranding, the board chairman smoothly stated, "We'll take operational questions offline to keep today's meeting strategic in focus." The message was clear. My input was no longer welcome. Looking around the table, I saw a few uncomfortable glances, but no one spoke up. Even Ashley, attending to present HR updates, could only offer a sympathetic look. After the meeting, I tried to speak with Jackson about the rebranding decision, only to have him check his watch and claim he was late for a call. The distance between us had grown into a chasm. That evening, Eleanor Westfield texted me. "Heard some rumors about the Pharmagen Apex merger. Hope everything is okay on your end." I didn't respond immediately, unsure how much to share with someone who was, despite our friendly coffee meeting, still essentially a client. But her message confirmed that word of the merger's details was spreading through industry circles. Whatever was coming, it seemed to be approaching fast. The day that changed everything started like any other. I arrived at the office at 7:30, earlier than most, to prepare for a client presentation scheduled for 10. As I approached the security desk in the lobby, the guard looked uncomfortable. "Good morning, Ms. Prescott," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Could you wait here a moment? I need to make a call." Confused but not yet alarmed, I stepped aside as he picked up the phone and spoke quietly. A minute later, Ashley appeared in the lobby, her expression grave. "Camille," she said softly, "come with me, please." "What's going on?" "I need to set up for the North Star presentation." "The presentation has been reassigned," she said, avoiding my gaze. "Please just come with me." A cold sensation spread through my chest as I followed her to the elevator. When she pressed the button for the executive floor rather than my department on 5, the feeling intensified. "Ashley, just tell me what's happening." She shook her head slightly. "They asked me not to." "I'm sorry, Camille." The elevator doors opened onto the plush carpeting of the executive floor. Ashley led me to my father's corner office, where I found my parents and Jackson waiting. On the polished conference table sat a cardboard box that I recognized as containing my personal items from my office. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew. My father cleared his throat. "Camille, please sit down." I remained standing. "I will stand, thank you." He nodded, switching to the formal tone he used for business matters. As you know, the merger with Apex is moving forward. As part of the restructuring process, we are making necessary adjustments to our organizational structure. You are firing me, I said flatly. My mother stepped in, her voice precise as always. Your position is being eliminated in the new organization. The combined company will not require duplicate marketing leadership. And what about Jackson's position? I asked, looking at my brother, who had the decency to look uncomfortable. Is that also being eliminated? Jackson will be executive vice president of the merged entity, my father said. Apex recognizes his strategic contributions. I see. The cold feeling had spread throughout my body now. And when did you make this decision? My parents exchanged glances. The final organizational chart was approved yesterday, my mother said. But Jackson's slight flinch told me otherwise. This had been planned for some time. We've prepared a generous severance package. My father continued, sliding a folder across the table. 6 months salary continuation of benefits and a letter of recommendation. I didn't touch the folder. Why wasn't I consulted about the North Star presentation? That account is my responsibility. We felt it would be best to make a clean break, my mother explained. Ryan will handle the presentation. So everyone knew about this before me, my own team. Only those who needed to know for continuity purposes, my father said. We wanted to be sensitive to your position. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Sensitive? You packed up my office before even speaking to me. You deactivated my access card. I turned to Ashley. Did you know? She looked miserable. I was informed this morning when they asked me to collect your things. I am so sorry, Camille. I nodded, unsurprised. Ashley had always been kind to me, but her primary loyalty had to be to the company, to my parents. Is there anything else you want to explain to me? I asked, looking at each of them in turn. My mother's expression remained impassive. My father looked uncomfortable but resolute. Jackson wouldn't meet my eyes. The official reason for your departure will be restructuring due to the merger, my mother said. But I think we should be honest among family. I waited, steeling myself. Your questioning of the merger finances at the board meeting created concerns with Apex, she continued. They specifically mentioned wanting a team that was fully aligned with the merger vision. Your resistance was noted. My resistance, I repeated incredulously. You mean my identification of actual financial errors that could have cost the company millions? The manner in which you raised those concerns was problematic, my father interjected. It suggested an unwillingness to support the company's strategic direction. I looked at my brother. And what do you have to say, Jackson? You know those projections were flawed. He finally met my gaze, his expression conflicted. The bigger picture makes the merger necessary, Camille. Sometimes details get sacrificed for the greater good. In that moment, I saw with painful clarity what I had refused to acknowledge for years. My family would always choose Jackson's path over mine, would always value his contributions, while minimizing mine. I had been fighting a battle that was rigged from the start. I see, I said quietly. Well, thank you for your honesty. I will clear out any remaining items and be on my way. Security will escort you, my mother said. Standard protocol for executive departures. The final indignity, to be treated as a potential threat by my own family. Of course, I replied, picking up the box of my belongings. Goodbye then. None of them moved to embrace me or offer any personal comfort. This was business after all. Just business. As I walked through the marketing department with a security guard at my side, I saw the shocked faces of my team members. Some looked away embarrassed. Others seemed genuinely distressed. Ryan stood from his desk, moving as if to speak to me, but the security guard stepped between us. She's not permitted to communicate with staff during exit, he said firmly. I saw Ashley hurrying down the hallway, clearly upset. This isn't right, she was saying to someone on the phone. At least let her say goodbye to her team. But protocol prevailed. I was escorted to the lobby, handed my personal items, and watched as my company ID was cut in half by the security desk scissors. The drive home was a blur. I called my parents, then Jackson, but no one answered. I texted Ashley, who responded immediately. "This is wrong. I'm so sorry. We'll call when I can." Sitting in my apartment, surrounded by the relics of my former life, I felt hollow. 6 years of dedication, of missed holidays and canceled plans of putting the company above everything had ended with a cardboard box and a severed ID card. My phone chimed with a text message. Unknown number. Heard what happened at Pharmagen. Would you be available for coffee this afternoon, Eleanor Westfield? I stared at the message, wondering how news had traveled so quickly and why the daughter of a client company CEO would reach out to me now. Perhaps professional courtesy, or simple curiosity. With nothing else to do and unable to face the silence of my apartment, I replied, "Cafe Nero on Newberry, 2 p.m. Her response came immediately. "Perfect. See you then." Little did I know that this meeting would change the course of my career and life in ways I could never have anticipated. I arrived at Cafe Nero early, choosing a quiet table in the corner. The coffee shop was busy with the afternoon crowd, business people taking late lunches, students with laptops, and tourists resting their feet. The normalcy of the scene felt surreal after the morning's events. I spotted Eleanor as soon as she walked in, her confident posture and tailored navy suit standing out among the casual patrons. She ordered at the counter before joining me, setting down 2 cups. "I took the liberty of ordering you a latte," she said. "Hope that's okay." "Thank you," I replied, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. "How did you hear about what happened?" Eleanor took a sip of her coffee before answering. "The pharmaceutical industry is smaller than people realize. Word travels fast, especially when it involves a company undergoing a merger and the departure of a key executive who happens to be the owner's daughter." I winced at the description. "I see." "For what it's worth," she continued, "many people are questioning the decision. Your marketing campaigns have been widely admired in the industry." The validation felt hollow after the morning's rejection, but I appreciated the sentiment. "Thank you, but I doubt you asked to meet just to offer condolences." A small smile played at Eleanor's lips. "Direct, I like that." She set down her cup. "You're right. I have been following your work for some time, Camille. The social health campaign was brilliant, obviously, but even your smaller initiatives showed remarkable insight into patient needs and market dynamics." I nodded, unsure where this was going. "Westfield Biotech is expanding," she continued. "We're launching a new division focused on innovative delivery systems for established medications, and we need someone with vision to head up our marketing and innovation strategy." My heart rate picked up slightly. "And you're telling me this because I want to hire you," Eleanor said simply, "as Director of Innovation for Westfield's new division." I stared at her, certain I had misheard. "You want to hire me today?" "The same day I was fired." "The timing is coincidental but convenient," she replied. "I've been planning to approach you for weeks, ever since our first meeting. Your insights about patient-centered marketing align perfectly with Westfield's vision. When I heard what happened at Pharmagen this morning, I decided to accelerate my timeline." My mind was spinning. This seems very sudden. "Business opportunities often are," she said pragmatically. "But if you're concerned about the timing, I understand. Take a week to consider. The position will remain open." "What exactly would this role entail?" I asked, professional curiosity overcoming my shock. "You would build and lead a team focused on bringing our new delivery technologies to market. Full creative control, a substantial budget, and direct reporting to me." She paused, then added, "And I'll hire you for 5 times your current salary." I nearly choked on my coffee. 5 times. That's what you're worth," Eleanor finished firmly. "Pharmagen was underpaying you significantly, Camille. I've done my research." The figure she named was staggering, more than I had ever imagined earning, certainly more than I was worth according to my family's valuation. But suspicion crept in alongside the amazement. Why me specifically? And why now is this about getting insider information on Pharmagen's merger? Eleanor looked mildly offended. "I'm not in the habit of industrial espionage, Camille. Westfield operates with complete integrity." Her expression softened. "But I appreciate your caution. The truth is, we need someone with exactly your expertise. Our delivery systems are revolutionary, but we need someone who understands how to communicate their benefits to patients and providers." She leaned forward. "As for why now, I'll be candid. Westfield has been watching the Pharmagen Apex merger with concern. We had a partnership agreement with Pharmagen that will likely dissolve under Apex's management. We need to move quickly to establish our own market position. So this is about competing with my family's company." The thought made me uncomfortable. "Not directly," Eleanor clarified. "We operate in a different segment of the market, but the pharmaceutical world is interconnected. Your knowledge of Pharmagen's operations is valuable, yes, but it's your marketing talent that we really want." I sat back considering her words. The offer was extraordinary, a validation I had never received from my own family. But accepting meant competing, at least indirectly, with Pharmagen. Could I do that to my family despite how they had treated me? As if reading my thoughts, Eleanor added softly, "They fired you, Camille. Without warning, without consultation. You don't owe them your loyalty anymore." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Ryan. "Need to talk. Have documents showing Jackson knew about your termination for weeks. He helped plan it. Call me." I stared at the screen, a cold weight settling in my stomach. My own brother had not only known, but actively participated in pushing me out. Eleanor watched my expression change. "Bad news?" I set the phone down. Just confirmation of something I suspected. I took a deep breath. "Your offer is incredibly generous, Eleanor, but I need time to think. This morning has been overwhelming." "Of course," she said, reaching into her purse and producing a business card. "Take a week. Call me when you're ready to discuss details. The position is yours if you want it." As she stood to leave, she paused. "One more thing, Camille. Whatever you decide, remember that your worth isn't determined by how your family values you. It's determined by what you bring to the table. And from where I'm sitting, that's quite a lot." After she left, I remained at the cafe, turning her card over in my fingers, mind racing with possibilities, fears, and the beginning of something that felt dangerously like hope. My phone rang, Ryan's name flashing on the screen. I answered, ready to hear just how deep my brother's betrayal went, and wondering if this new door opening before me might be exactly the fresh start I needed. The week following my termination became a period of profound reflection. I declined Ryan's offer to meet in person, asking him instead to email the documents he had mentioned. What arrived in my inbox confirmed my worst suspicions. Email threads dating back nearly a month showing Jackson's active participation in planning my removal from the company. In one particularly painful exchange, my brother had written, "Camille's position can be eliminated during restructuring with minimal disruption. She manages the relationships well, but the team can function without her oversight temporarily." My father had responded, "Ensure the severance package is generous. She is still family despite the business necessities." No mention of my contributions. No recognition of my years of dedication. Just clinical discussion of my dispensability. I didn't attend the weekly family dinner that Sunday, the first one I had missed in years unless I was traveling for business. No one called to check on me. The silence from my family was deafening, confirming that business had indeed superseded family bonds. By Wednesday, I had made my decision. I called Eleanor and accepted her offer, scheduling a meeting to discuss details for the following Monday. The weekend stretched before me, empty of obligations for the first time in years. Standing in my apartment that Saturday, I realized how little of myself existed outside of work. My walls were bare except for a single framed photo of my college graduation. My bookshelf held mostly business and marketing texts. I had no hobbies, few close friends outside of work, and a wardrobe consisting almost entirely of professional attire. Who am I without Pharmagen? I asked my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman who stared back looked tired, a little lost, but there was something else there too, a spark of possibility. Monday morning found me walking into the sleek glass headquarters of Westfield Biotech, wearing a new suit I had purchased specifically for this fresh start. The receptionist greeted me by name, clearly expecting me, and escorted me to the elevator. "Ms. Westfield is waiting for you on the 10th floor," she explained. Your office is being prepared as we speak. The elevator doors opened onto a reception area where Eleanor stood waiting, dressed in a charcoal suit that exuded confident professionalism. "Camille, welcome to Westfield," she said warmly, extending her hand. "Ready for the tour." The next hour was a whirlwind of introductions and information. Westfield's operations were impressive, their research facilities cutting edge, and the team members I met seemed genuinely excited about the company's direction. "And this," Eleanor said, finally opening a door near the end of the executive hallway, "is your office." I stepped into a spacious corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston skyline. Modern furnishings, state-of-the-art technology, and a small conference table filled the space, which was easily 3 times the size of my office at Pharmagen. "This is," I began, overwhelmed. "Appropriate for your position," Eleanor finished. "The Director of Innovation needs a space that fosters creative thinking." On the desk sat a leather portfolio embossed with the Westfield logo and my name. Inside was my employment contract, employee handbook, and company information. "Your team is being assembled," Eleanor explained as I leafed through the materials. "You'll have 5 direct reports to start with, budget for 3 more as you identify needs. I've scheduled introductions for this afternoon." "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "This is more than I expected." Eleanor smiled. "Get used to being valued appropriately, Camille. At Westfield, we invest in talent." She checked her watch. "I'll let you settle in. We have a strategy lunch at noon." Left alone in my new office, I slowly walked the perimeter, taking in details, trying to absorb the reality of this dramatic change in my professional circumstances. Just 10 days ago, I had been escorted from my family's company with a box of personal items. Now I had an executive position with a corner office and a team being built to my specifications. My phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. "Heard you landed at Westfield. Congratulations. Things falling apart here. Can we talk?" I hesitated before responding. Ashley had been kind to me, but she was still employed by my family. Could I trust her now that I worked for a competitor, albeit an indirect one? Before I could decide, my phone rang. Eleanor's assistant informing me that my first team member had arrived and was waiting to meet me. Business first, I decided. Personal complications could wait. The next 3 months passed in a productive blur. I threw myself into building my team, including hiring Ashley after she was let go from Pharmagen for continued loyalty to former management, a thinly veiled reference to her friendship with me. With her HR expertise and knowledge of pharmaceutical marketing regulations, she became an invaluable deputy in my new role. Together, we developed a revolutionary marketing approach for Westfield's medication delivery technologies. Rather than focusing solely on healthcare providers, we created a dual-track strategy that educated patients about the benefits of improved delivery systems while providing doctors with detailed clinical outcome data. The work was challenging and fulfilling in ways my position at Pharmagen had never been. At Westfield, my ideas were heard, my expertise respected, and my authority unquestioned. Eleanor proved to be both a supportive boss and a valuable mentor, offering guidance without micromanagement. "The executive committee loved your presentation," she told me after I had been with the company for 6 months. "The launch timeline has been approved with full funding." "That's fantastic," I replied, genuinely excited about the project's potential. The patient focus groups showed incredibly positive responses to the diabetes delivery prototype. "Which reminds me," Eleanor said, "you've been invited to speak at the Healthcare Innovation Conference next month. They want you to present on patient-centered marketing approaches." I blinked in surprise. "Me specifically, not you or another Westfield executive?" "You specifically," she confirmed. "Your reputation is growing, Camille. The social health campaign may have been at Pharmagen, but people remember who created it." The conference invitation was just the beginning. As our marketing campaign for Westfield's new delivery systems gained traction, I found myself increasingly in demand as a speaker and industry commentator. Trade publications quoted my perspectives on patient engagement, and competitors began mimicking our approaches, the sincerest form of flattery in the business world. Through it all, I had no contact with my family. The severance check had been deposited directly to my account. The promised letter of recommendation never materialized, and the silence stretched from weeks into months. I threw myself into building my new life, renting a larger apartment, making friends outside of work, and even taking up painting, a childhood hobby I had abandoned during my Pharmagen years. The Healthcare Innovation Conference was being held at the Boston Convention Center, a massive facility that hosted dozens of industry events each year. I arrived early on the day of my presentation, wanting time to review my slides and prepare mentally. As I stood in the speaker's lounge reviewing my notes, a familiar voice broke my concentration. "Camille." I looked up to find Jackson standing a few feet away, holding a coffee cup and looking as surprised as I felt. "Jackson," I acknowledged, keeping my voice neutral. "I didn't know you were speaking today." "Panel discussion on merger integration," he explained, gesturing vaguely toward the schedule board. "I didn't know you were here either." An awkward silence fell between us. 6 months of no contact had created a gulf that small talk couldn't bridge. He looked tired. I noticed the confident sparkle in his eyes dimmed somewhat. "How have you been?" he finally asked. "Good," I replied honestly. "Very good, actually. And you?" He hesitated. "Busy. The merger has been challenging." I waited, unsure what to say. Part of me wanted to ask about our parents. Another part wanted to confront him about his role in my termination. But mostly, I felt a strange detachment, as if we were acquaintances, rather than siblings who had grown up sharing a bathroom and fighting over the last pancake at breakfast. "Listen, Camille," he began, setting down his coffee cup. "About what happened." "It's fine," I interrupted, not ready for whatever justification he might offer. "It worked out for the best. I'm happy at Westfield." "Yes, I've heard." He said, a note of something like envy in his voice. "Your campaign for their new delivery systems is getting attention." I nodded, accepting the professional acknowledgement. "Thank you." Another pause. Then, "The company has been struggling since the merger," he admitted quietly. "We lost some key clients. The projected synergies haven't materialized." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it despite everything. Pharmagen had been my professional home for 6 years. I didn't wish failure on the many good people who worked there. "Dad has been asking about you," Jackson continued. "He saw the announcement about your speaking engagement today." I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "He's had my phone number and address for 6 months." Jackson looked uncomfortable. "You know how he is. Pride makes it hard for him to make the first move." "And what about your pride, Jackson?" I asked the question, slipping out before I could stop it. "Did it make it hard to tell me you were helping plan my termination for weeks before it happened?" His face flushed. "It wasn't personal, Camille. It was a business decision." "Keeping it secret from me was personal," I countered. "We're family, or at least I thought we were." Before he could respond, the event coordinator appeared at my elbow. "Ms. Prescott, you're on in 15 minutes. We need you backstage for the microphone setup." I nodded my thanks and gathered my materials. "I have to go." "Camille, wait," Jackson said, reaching out to touch my arm. Would you consider coming back to Pharmagen? Dad would create a position for you, something better than before." I stared at him, momentarily speechless. "You're asking me to leave Westfield to come back to the company that fired me?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "The situation has changed. We realize now that losing you was a mistake." "Because you're struggling with the merger?" I asked pointedly. "Partly," he admitted, "but also because you're family. We miss you." For a brief moment, I felt a pang of the old longing for my family's approval. The little girl who had tried so hard to be noticed was still there inside me somewhere, but she was overshadowed now by the woman who had discovered her own worth outside of their validation. "I'm sorry, Jackson," I said gently. "I'm happy where I am. Westfield values my contributions in ways Pharmagen never did. Please give my regards to Mom and Dad." I walked away toward the stage entrance, feeling his eyes on my back but not turning around. My presentation was waiting, and with it, the future I was building for myself. Later that day, as I checked my phone after the conference sessions ended, I found a news alert about Pharmagen. A financial publication had run an article about the struggling merger, featuring a photo of my father looking grim beside Apex's CEO. The caption noted declining quarterly results and growing shareholder concerns. I felt a complicated mix of emotions, vindication mingled with sadness for the company I had once loved. But as I slipped my phone back into my pocket and headed for the taxi stand, I realized something important. For the first time since I could remember, my family's problems were no longer my problems. I was free. 8 months after joining Westfield, I returned to my office after a successful product launch event to find a bouquet of lilies, my favorite flowers, sitting on my desk. The card simply read, "Congratulations on the launch coverage. Well-deserved recognition, Eleanor." The gesture was typical of Eleanor's leadership style, acknowledging achievements with personal touches that showed genuine appreciation. Under her mentorship, I had grown not just professionally, but personally, developing confidence in my judgment and vision that had been systematically undermined during my years at Pharmagen. The launch of Westfield's new insulin delivery system had garnered significant industry attention, with major medical journals praising both the technology and the patient-centered marketing approach my team had developed. My name was featured prominently in the coverage, establishing me as an industry thought leader in pharmaceutical marketing innovation. As I arranged the flowers in a vase, Ashley appeared in my doorway. "Impressive spread in the Medical Innovation Journal," she said with a smile. "Your parents must be bursting with pride now." I gave her a wry look. "I wouldn't know. We haven't spoken in 8 months." She shook her head disapprovingly. "Families can be so stubborn. Speaking of which—" She hesitated uncharacteristically. "What is it?" I prompted. "Your parents are downstairs in the lobby. They've asked to see you." The vase nearly slipped from my hands. "My parents are here now." Ashley nodded. "Eleanor is aware they're here. She said it's entirely your choice whether to see them or not." I set the vase down carefully, mind racing. Why would my parents come here to my workplace after months of silence? Was this about business or family? And was I ready to face them regardless of their purpose? "Tell security I'll be down in 5 minutes," I decided. "And Ashley, thank you for the heads up." She smiled sympathetically. "Want me to create an emergency in 30 minutes? I could page you for an urgent call." The offer of an escape route was tempting, but I shook my head. "I'll handle it, but stay close to your phone just in case." After taking a moment to collect myself and check my appearance, I took the elevator down to the lobby. My parents were seated in the visitors area, looking out of place and uncomfortable. My father was fiddling with his tie, a nervous habit I recognized from childhood, while my mother sat perfectly still, her posture rigid as always. They stood when they saw me approach, uncertainty evident in their expressions. My father spoke first. "Camille, thank you for seeing us." "This is a surprise," I said neutrally, not moving to embrace them. "What brings you to Westfield?" My mother glanced around the busy lobby. "Is there somewhere we could speak privately?" I considered directing them to one of the small meeting rooms off the lobby, but decided against it. This was my territory now, and I preferred to maintain the home field advantage of a public space. The courtyard should be relatively quiet this time of day. I suggested, leading them through glass doors to Westfield's landscaped outdoor area, complete with benches and a small fountain. We found a secluded spot, and I gestured for them to sit. "You look well, Camille." My mother observed, her eyes taking in my tailored suit and confident posture. "Westfield seems to agree with you." "It does," I confirmed simply. "I appreciate the work environment here." My father cleared his throat. "We saw the coverage of your insulin delivery system launch. Very impressive." "Thank you." An awkward silence descended. After 8 months without contact, superficial pleasantries felt absurd, but the deeper issues remained difficult to broach. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "We've missed you at Sunday dinners." "Have you?" I asked, unable to keep a hint of skepticism from my tone. My father sighed heavily. "We've handled this situation poorly, Camille. The way your position was terminated, it wasn't right." "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." "Business and family should have been kept separate," he continued. "We let the merger dictate decisions that affected our relationship with you, and that was wrong." I studied them both, searching for signs of genuine remorse rather than strategic reconciliation. My father looked tired, the lines around his eyes deeper than I remembered. My mother's perfectly maintained exterior showed small cracks, a loosened strand of hair, a slight smudge on her otherwise immaculate blouse. "Why now?" I asked directly. "It's been 8 months. Why reach out today?" They exchanged glances, a silent communication I had witnessed thousands of times growing up. My mother nodded slightly, and my father continued. "The merger hasn't gone as planned," he admitted. "Apex's management approach has been more aggressive than anticipated, and we've lost several key client relationships, including Westfield." "I'm aware," I said. Westfield had indeed terminated their partnership with Pharmagen Apex shortly after the merger was finalized, a business decision that had nothing to do with my employment, but rather with changes in contract terms that Eleanor had found unacceptable. "The truth is," my father continued, "we need your expertise. The marketing department hasn't been the same since you left. The social health platform has lost engagement, and the new product launches have underperformed." And there it was. Not a personal reconciliation, but a business proposition disguised as an apology. Some things never changed. "So you're here to offer me my job back," I stated flatly. "A better position," my mother clarified quickly. "Executive Vice President of Marketing and Client Relations, reporting directly to your father. Full autonomy over your department and a seat on the executive committee. With appropriate compensation, of course," my father added. I shook my head slowly, a sad smile forming. 8 months without a call or text. No birthday card, no Christmas greeting, nothing. And your first outreach is a job offer. "It's not just about the job, Camille," my mother insisted, though the flicker in her eyes betrayed her. "We want to repair our relationship with you." "By offering me a position at the company that fired me without warning?" I asked. "The company where my own brother helped plan my termination in secret." "Jackson feels terrible about his role in what happened," my father said quickly. "He's been pushing for us to reach out to you for months. Has he interesting timing given the merger difficulties?" "This isn't just about business," my mother said, a note of frustration entering her voice. "Though I don't understand why you insist on separating family and business so completely. The two have always been intertwined for us." "That's exactly the problem," I replied. "You've never seen me as just your daughter. I've always been an asset, or a liability to the family business first, a person second." "That's not fair," my father protested. "Isn't it?" I challenged. "When was the last time either of you asked about my happiness, my dreams, my life outside of work? When was the last time my achievements were celebrated for their own sake, not for how they reflected on Pharmagen?" They had no immediate answer, and in their silence I found my own clarity. "I appreciate you coming here today," I said more gently. "And I'm sorry the merger hasn't gone as planned, but I'm not interested in returning to Pharmagen. I've built something new here at Westfield, something valuable on my own terms." "You'd choose a stranger's company over your family business?" my mother asked incredulously. "I'm choosing a healthy work environment where my contributions are valued," I corrected her. "And I'm choosing my own path, which is something I should have done years ago." My father leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Camille, whatever mistakes we've made, we're still your parents. We still love you." The words so rarely spoken in our achievement-oriented family caught me off guard. For a moment, I felt the pull of familial bonds, the desire to please that had driven me for so many years. "I know you do," I said softly. "In your way, and I love you too. But love without respect isn't enough anymore." Before they could respond, the courtyard door opened and Jackson appeared, looking anxious. He hesitated when he saw us sitting together, then approached cautiously. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said, glancing between our parents and me. "The parking was impossible." "Jackson wasn't supposed to join us until later," my mother explained quickly. "For dinner if things went well." I stood suddenly overwhelmed by the family tableau before me. "I need to get back to work. I have a team waiting for me." "Camille, please," Jackson said, stepping forward. "Just hear me out for 2 minutes." Something in his voice, a note of genuine distress I rarely heard from my confident brother, made me pause. 2 minutes, I agreed. He took a deep breath. "I was wrong. Not just about the termination, but about everything. The way I accepted favoritism, the way I took credit for your work, the way I never stood up for you when I should have. I knew it was happening, and I let it continue because it benefited me. The raw honesty was so unexpected that I found myself momentarily speechless. The merger is failing, he continued bluntly. The financial projections you questioned were indeed flawed, just as you said. We're losing millions and clients are jumping ship. But worse than that, I've lost my sister, and that's on me. My parents looked uncomfortable with Jackson's candor, but he continued regardless. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I recognize what I did and I'm sorry. Truly sorry. He stepped back as if physically giving me space. That's all I wanted to say. The sincerity in his voice touched something in me. Not enough to erase the past, but perhaps enough to consider a different future than the complete estrangement of the past 8 months. Thank you for saying that, I said quietly. It means something. An alert chimed on my phone, a reminder of my next meeting. I have to go now, but perhaps we could have dinner sometime, just as family, no business discussion. The relief on their faces was palpable, though my mother couldn't resist adding, You'll think about the position, though, won't you just consider it? I shook my head, smiling despite myself at her persistence. No, Mom, I won't, but I will think about having Sunday dinner with you again sometime soon. It wasn't complete reconciliation, but it was a start, a tentative bridge across the chasm that had opened between us. As I walked them back to the lobby, I felt lighter somehow, as if setting clear boundaries had freed me from the weight of unmet expectations. Returning to my office, I found Eleanor waiting perched casually on the edge of my desk. Family reunion go okay? She asked, concern evident in her voice. As well as could be expected, I replied. They offered me a job, believe it or not. Eleanor laughed. Of course they did. Your marketing campaign is the talk of the industry. I'm just surprised they had the nerve to try poaching you directly from my lobby. Don't worry, I declined, I assured her, rather definitively. I never doubted you would, she said, standing to leave. But I would understand if you had considered it. Family ties run deep. They do, I acknowledged. But so does professional respect. And I've found that here. After she left, I turned back to my work reviewing plans for our next product launch. The encounter with my family had stirred up old feelings, but it had also confirmed how much I had grown since leaving Pharmagen. I had found my voice, my confidence, and my place in the world, things I might never have discovered had I remained in the comfortable but limiting embrace of the family business. The following week brought unexpected news. A business publication broke the story that Westfield Biotech was in talks to acquire Pharmagen's consumer health division, which had been struggling under Apex management. The article mentioned that Eleanor Westfield was personally leading the negotiations. She confirmed the news when I asked, but quickly assured me that I would not be expected to manage the acquisition process given my personal connections. This is strictly business, she explained. Their consumer division complements our research focus, and the price is right given their current difficulties. I understand. I told her, and I did. Business was business after all, a lesson my parents had taught me well, if not in the way they intended. Over the next year, my career at Westfield continued to flourish. I was promoted to vice president after the successful launch of our second delivery system with an expanded team and global responsibilities. The acquisition of Pharmagen's consumer division was completed with Eleanor keeping her promise to handle the negotiations personally. I did eventually resume Sunday dinners with my family, though on a monthly rather than weekly basis. Our relationship remained complicated, the old patterns occasionally resurfacing but with new awareness on both sides. Jackson in particular seemed changed by the merger experience, more thoughtful and less entitled than before. Looking back on the journey from that shocking morning when I was escorted from Pharmagen's offices, I realized that what had seemed like the worst day of my professional life had actually been the beginning of something valuable, a necessary break from patterns that had limited my growth and happiness. I had learned that sometimes rejection is redirection, that validation from others is never as powerful as believing in your own worth. that family ties can be both binding and blinding, and that sometimes distance is necessary to gain perspective. Most importantly, I had learned that my value was not determined by my family's perception, but by the unique contributions only I could make. The rejection that had once devastated me had ultimately set me free. In the quiet of my office, looking out at the Boston skyline, where both Westfield and Pharmagen buildings stood among the many towers, I felt a sense of peace with my journey. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had found my own path on my own terms. And that made all the difference. The journey I took from being fired from my parents' company to finding success at Westfield taught me something profound, something I want to share with all of you who have stayed with me through this story. Our worth is never defined by those who fail to see it, even when those people are family. True value comes from within, from knowing what you bring to the table, even when others miss it. For years, I believed that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, sacrificed enough, my family would finally see me clearly. But the truth was, they were looking in the wrong direction all along. It took the painful experience of being literally escorted from the building to force me to look in a new direction myself. The first weeks after being fired were devastating. I questioned everything about my professional identity and personal worth. But when Eleanor offered me that position, something shifted. Someone had seen value in me that my own family had missed. And gradually, I began to see it too. Building Westfield's marketing department and watching our campaigns succeed validated what I had always known deep down, that I had real talent and insight to offer. Each small victory helped heal the wound of rejection, until eventually the scar became a badge of honor rather than a source of pain. When my family finally reached out, I was able to engage with them from a position of strength rather than need. The desperate desire for approval that had driven me for years had been replaced by a clear-eyed assessment of my own worth. I could love them without needing them to validate me. Healing is rarely a straight line. There are still moments when old insecurities surface, when a careless comment from my father or my brother's casual assumption of authority triggers echoes of past pain. But now I recognize those moments for what they are: reflexes from an old injury rather than accurate reflections of reality. The greatest freedom comes not from proving others wrong, but from no longer needing to prove anything at all. My success at Westfield wasn't about showing my family what they had lost, but about discovering what I had gained: a confidence and clarity that no external validation could provide or take away. If you find yourself feeling invisible or undervalued, remember that sometimes the people closest to us are the least able to see us clearly. Their vision is clouded by their own expectations, their own narratives about who we are or should be. Finding those who can see you with fresh eyes can be revolutionary. And sometimes the rejection that feels like the end of everything is actually the beginning of something far better than you could have imagined. A door closing behind you forces you to look ahead to paths you might never have chosen voluntarily. I would love to hear your stories in the comments. Have you ever experienced being undervalued only to find success elsewhere? What helped you recognize your own worth when others missed it? Share your experiences and let's build each other up. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and rediscovery. And share this with someone who might need to be reminded of their value today. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, your worth isn't determined by others' recognition of it. It exists constant and true, waiting for you to claim it. And when you do, no one can ever take it away again.